For the News Channel 5 Midday Report with Roy Hobbs.
This is the News Channel 5 Midday Report with Roy Hobbs.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Midday Report. It's Thursday, January 17th, and America is at war. Here are the latest facts as we know them. The Defense Department confirms 1 U.S. casualty so far in Operation Desert Storm, an American pilot. A British plane has also been lost. News reports in Egypt say arrangements have been made for the desertion of 50 Iraqi tank crews in Kuwait. Cautious optimism. That's what the government is asking all Americans to have regarding our allied strike against Iraq. While it appears the first strike has been very successful, Pentagon officials warn it is far from being over.
Since the air attacks began at just before 6 p.m. Nashville time last night, Allied forces have flown more than 1,000 sorties or air attacks into Iraq and Kuwait.
We had air superiority the entire time. We came up very little. We went in with some very precision bombers. We went in some very heavily defended areas and dropped some excellent bombs and destroyed a lot of targets.
Defense Secretary Dick Cheney reported this morning that 2 Allied aircraft, 1 American jet and 1 British jet, had sustained damage during the attack.
Present, we are in the process of using our intelligence assets to assess the damage that has been achieved. As that process is completed, decisions will be made about going back to restrike those targets that require additional attention.
So far, the only American death reported in Operation Desert Storm is the pilot of the downed American jet. President Bush up early this morning headed for the White House Situation Room to stay up on the latest developments, but he was obviously pleased with the way things have gone so far.
We are pleased with the way things have gone so far. We are determined to finish what we've set out to do, but I just think...
And apparently the Allied first strike was successful enough to cause some 50 Iraqi tank crews stationed in Kuwait to surrender to Saudi Arabia. The reports say the tank crews are heading to Egyptian military posts in Saudi Arabia to give themselves up. America at war. Families left behind are anxious, worried about their loved ones in the Gulf. Some of those military families live here in Middle Tennessee and southern Kentucky. News Channel 5's Shirley Washington joins us now live. And Shirley, are there any changes at the Fort Campbell?
Roy, one day after war breaks out and security is tightened here at Fort Campbell. However, officials refuse to confirm what appears to be obvious. The main gate at Fort Campbell looks a little different these days. There's an increase in military police officers, and for the first time since the crisis in the Middle East began, there are guard dogs walking the grounds. However, during a news conference this morning, Fort Campbell spokesman Bill Harrelson refused to answer questions about the tightened security, a precaution against terrorist attacks.
Because I don't know. We will have a security expert here this afternoon that will answer your questions on that.
Harrelson also refused to answer questions about the 101st involvement in Operation Desert Storm.
I will not address or answer any questions that pertain to the operation of the division in Saudi Arabia, nor will any of the panel this afternoon.
Now, as you just heard, there will be another briefing this afternoon at 3 o'clock. However, Harrelson has made it clear that no questions regarding the 101st Airborne Division will be addressed. So, Roy, looks like we'll just have to wait and see what develops in the days ahead.
All righty, Shirley, thank you. News Channel 5, Shirley Washington reporting live from Fort Campbell. Well, the Gulf War is hitting home hard with the soldiers' families at Fort Campbell. These women watched the war unfold on television last night. The women are cousins and their husbands' comrades in arms serving in Saudi Arabia. Both say they are praying their husbands will come home safely.
All I can do is just hope for the best, pray for a safe return, of my husband.
Some of the families left at Fort Campbell have formed a support group during this time of crisis. The Tennessee National Guard families got some good news this morning. There are no Tennessee casualties to report during the first day of Operation Desert Storm. Adjutant General Carl Wallace gave his first casualty briefing this morning at the National Guard Armory. He will hold several of these updates today as long as developments in the Persian Gulf continue. Wallace talked to Tennessee air and ground troops earlier today, and he learned the air side is very much a part of the action in the Persian Gulf.
Anybody does not have... On the air side, we had a lot of involvement from the 134th Air Refueling group out of Knoxville. They flew all last night. They flew the missions all day, and no ground troops are involved at this particular time. Some of them have moved positions, but that's not unusual.
Wallace says the Tennessee troops' morale appears high. He passed that update on to spouses and Governor McWhorter this morning. Voices of protest are again being raised on downtown streets this morning in Nashville. Dozens of protesters crowded the street chanting, "Stop the bombing." The protesters called themselves the Coalition to End U.S. Intervention in the Middle East, and they want an immediate end to the fighting in the Persian Gulf.
Military action was not the solution. We're very disappointed in what Bush did.
The streets of San Francisco were lined with thousands of anti-war demonstrators last night. Dozens of police and riot gear had to be called out to keep the crowd calm. Anti-war protesters captured 2 police cars and burned them. Many Tennesseans are raising their voices in prayer this morning.
We're in the middle of a war, and so instead of singing tonight and me preaching, we're just going to pray.
And prayers for peace filled many local church services last night. People gathered to seek religious support, to pray for the safety of their loved ones in the Gulf, and to pray that victory will be swift. And we'll be back in just a moment, and when we do come back, we'll have the latest on the war in the Gulf, and security is a top priority at Nashville's International Airport. Stay with us.
Good morning, Bob. Boy, you look great.
Hey, I feel great, thanks to Baptist Hospital.
Really?
Yep. Just had that long overdue checkup, and I'm in good shape.
I need to do that too, but I don't even have a doctor.
Neither did I. So I called Baptist Men's Health Services. The man I talked to put me in touch with the right doctor for me.
Well, that sounds easy.
Hey, it was. If you have a problem or just want to make sure you don't, call Baptist Men's Health Services at 329-MENS. A free service from Baptist Hospital.
Every second of an asthma attack can feel like an eternity. That's why there's Primatene Mist. Primatene opens clogged breathing tubes in as fast as 15 seconds. Primatene Mist, the fastest type relief known.
The stress headache. When its pain stretches you to the limit, take aspirin-free Anacin 3.
I take Anacin 3 for the pain. It's not aspirin. It doesn't upset my stomach.
Anacin 3, aspirin-free pain relief for today's stress headache.
It's an old product, but a Nashville company has found a new use for it that is positively Nashville. Tonight on our 10 o'clock report.
As we continue our coverage of America at war, here are the latest developments as we know them today. In Baghdad, Iraqi officials have stopped telephone transmissions by reporters. In Cairo, Egypt's government-controlled media is reporting that 50 Iraqi tank crews have deserted their post in Kuwait and are headed for the Allied side. And in Washington, D.C., Defense Secretary Richard Cheney says some Iraqi targets bombed during the initial attacks will be retargeted. An operation Cheney says is normal. Well, the war has already affected operations at the Nashville International Airport. Last night, airport authorities tightened security because of the threat of terrorism. For the time being, though, only ticketed passengers can go to the gates beyond the metal detectors. Also, there is no longer any curbside check-in, so all departing passengers must check their bags at the airline counter. Any unattended vehicles on the departure or arrival levels may be towed away. Any unattended bags or packages may be inspected by security officers. There are more officers on duty during every shift now, and they're paying much closer attention to the contents of each bag. The higher level of security was ordered by the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, as a precaution and not because of any specific threat against Nashville's airport. Word of war brought big changes in the world financial markets and a sharp increase in the price of crude oil. Crude oil prices soared as high as $41 a barrel on the overnight cash markets in New Orleans and Houston, but prices have since eased back to about $35 a barrel. World financial markets traded feverishly as fighting in the Middle East broke out. Stocks in Japan, though, posted their 10th largest gain ever, up more than 1,000 points. And prices on Wall Street have exploded as news of the American-led forces continue their assault on Iraq. Right now, the Dow Jones Industrials are up over 80.5 points, or almost 80.5 points, rather, at 2589.36. Governor Ned McWhorter is the commander-in-chief of Tennessee's National Guard, and his chief of staff, Jim Kennedy, says the governor does not want to comment until he learns more about what's happening in the Gulf. But Kennedy does say the governor was warned that the attack was coming.
We had some notice yesterday that something could happen, and we were concerned about it. And the governor's, he's really, as some people may know, he was in the Guard himself for 20-some years. He knows many of the people that have been deployed.
The outbreak of the war may affect the governor's second-term inauguration, which is scheduled for Saturday. Jordan, the country which stands between Saddam Hussein and Israel, is in the middle of the Gulf conflict in more ways than one. While Jordan is not directly involved in the current round of fighting, Jordanians are feeling the effects of the war. Doug Tennell reports from Amman.
Ironically, this was the day Jordan's government had planned to test the air raid sirens of Amman. But at the designated hour, the only sound was the call to prayer. The test was apparently canceled because on this tense day in the Middle East, many may have taken the alert for real. Many may have panicked. Shops have closed. The streets are largely quiet. The size and speed of the war stunned people here. Many support Iraq. There are warnings Arab allies of Iraq may soon retaliate.
The radical groups will definitely attack everything that is American. Saddam will go down in the history, in the annals of Arab history as a martyr, as someone who withstood, who stood up to the Americans in this part of the world.
And it isn't just the radicals. Many ordinary people here in Jordan are stunned and angered by the war they see unfolding near them. Doug Tennell, CBS News, Amman.
And just ahead, snow may be in our forecast. Bob Stokes will be along in just a moment to tell us. Stay with us.
Look, boys, it was swell. We were great fun. We had laughs, but that's all it was.
Lois, can't we just talk about this like adults?
What more is there to say? Comes a time when a woman wants substance.
But Lois, we are men of substance.
Oh, you are?
Sure. There's more to Rice Krispies than Snap Crackle Pop. Yeah, it's fat-free and packed with the goodness of rice. And we're complex. We're tops in complex carbohydrates.
Oh, then you are men of substance.
That's us.
Oh, say those three little words I've been longing to hear.
Snap Crackle Pop, Rice Krispies.
There are two ways of filing your income tax return, the old way or rapid refund from H&R Block. The old way involves patience. With Rapid Refund, we file your federal return electronically, and you get a loan against your anticipated refund in a matter of days. Even the fees can be withheld. Available whether H&R Block prepares your return or not. So it's your choice, the old way or Rapid Refund from H&R Block, to get your money fast.
Forced to sell at the John F. Lawhon Building. New furniture inventories have been marked for immediate sale and certain liquidation. Genuine leather sofas are $2.99. Queen Anne chairs are $1.19. Large lamps are $9. At the John F. Lawhon Building, day beds are $29. Bedroom chests are $39. Genuine posture craft bedding is $39. Solid wood bunk beds are $49. This sale is at the John F. Lawhon Building, I-65 at the Jefferson Street exit next to Braid Electric.
Tennessee's Adjutant General Carl Wallace says members of a Tennessee National Guard air refueling unit and a flight line crew took part in the initial airstrikes against Iraq. Major General Carl Wallace says no casualties have been reported among Tennessee Guard units. Now, let's check in with Bob Stokes and find out about our forecast in this area. And I would imagine most folks' minds are on what's happening out in the Gulf. And how's our weather today, though?
Well, exactly, Roy. Yeah. Well, we've got clouds in the Gulf. Speaking of the Gulf, and we've got some clouds here, but I'm expecting some sunshine here during the afternoon, and it looks like dry weather for the next several days, as a matter of fact, Roy. Good news. Now, during the past 24 hours, we've had a high of 52 degrees with a low of 40 this morning. There's been no rainfall, 2.73 inches for the month. Right now, under cloudy skies, but I think some sunshine will break through before the day is done. 41 degrees. It is cool with a relative humidity of 70%. Winds out of the southwest at 7 miles per hour. Pressure 30.25, and it is rising. There is an area of low pressure over the Mideast at this time, which is creating a lot of cloud cover. Now, just to put this in perspective, this is Saudi Arabia down here, this big country. This is Iraq, and all this area here is covered with clouds. Practically, there could be some rain showers developing developing over the next 24 hours in that region. Now, coming back closer to home, you can see a thin layer of clouds continuing to cover parts of Tennessee, but there's a large clearing off toward our southwest, which will build in during the afternoon tonight and tomorrow and give us some sunshine tomorrow. In fact, for the next several days, this is the tail end of that old low pressure area which brought us some rain a couple of days ago, but no more rainfall is expected here in Middle Tennessee for quite some time, as a matter of fact. You can see the spinning of that area of low pressure during the past 24 hours counterclockwise, moving toward the northeast, where heavy snow came down over parts of Maine and New Hampshire last night. Also some snowfall over parts of New Mexico and western Texas. El Paso, which is usually warm and dry even in the wintertime, could see some snow today. They've already had some snowfall, rain over other parts of Texas, but high pressure building in here. But in the upper atmosphere, still some cloudiness, still some moisture, but I'm expecting some sunny breaks throughout the afternoon. Now, tomorrow we'll have some sunshine as well, maybe a stray cloud or two persisting, some snowfall developing over the Great Lakes, and this weather maker here over the Pacific Northwest could cool us down quite a bit as we go into Sunday. Temperatures may drop into the 30s for highs on Sunday. Now, our highs today will be in the 40s with the cool air to our north, and on Friday, temperatures will stay in the 40s with readings in the 50s to our southeast and some 70s over Miami, and we have some 60s over parts of the southwest. The forecast for Nashville today, clouds, quite a bit of them, but sunny breaks now and again this afternoon, a high of only 46 degrees, winds coming in from the west at 5 to 10 miles per hour. The outlook for Nashville tonight, fair skies and rather cold, a low of 29 degrees. There's going to be a few clouds around still, winds out of the west at 5 miles per hour. The next 5 days, partly cloudy skies right through Sunday, and Monday we'll have a lot of sunshine, highs in the 40s for the next couple of days, or at least into Friday, then about 50 on Saturday, and dropping quite a bit on Sunday and Monday with highs only in the 30s. And temperatures in the Mideast, by the way, Roy, have ranged anywhere from the 50s to the 70s there. So not as hot as it was when we were first reporting on temperatures in the summer.
That's right. All right. Yeah. Thank you, Bob. And when we come back, we'll have a live report from Washington on the latest in America at War. Stay with us.
When your children have a cough, give them the one thing that'll make you both feel better. Creamulsion for children. For safe, soothing relief. It's the loving spoonful.
Know someone who's feeling a little down? Pick 'em up with Emma's FTD Pick Me Up bouquet. Colorful flowers in a rainbow coffee mug with reusable tote bag, just $22.50. Emma's Choice African violets in attractive baskets. Select 1, 2, 3, or 5. $7.95 each, 5 for $30. Emma's, these superlative florists.
By recycling this commercial, we saved a bundle. That's the idea behind Renew, the first trash bag made almost entirely of recycled plastic. We saved, so you save. Everyone saves when you recycle and renew.
Can't you do anything right?
When your world seems to be falling apart, no matter what it is, Crisis Call is there to listen and help work out your problems.
All right, here are the latest facts as we know them. The Defense Department confirms 1 U.S. casualty so far in Operation Desert Storm, an American pilot. A British plane has also been lost. News reports in Egypt say arrangements have been made for the desertion of 50 Iraqi tank crews in Kuwait. We now go to Washington for a live report from our bureau there. News Channel 5's Carolyn Gorman joins us now from Washington. Carolyn?
Where there's an almost audible sigh of relief in Washington this morning, 15 hours into Operation Desert Storm, and so far it appears American casualties have been very, very few. President Bush appeared rested and relaxed this morning as he briefed congressional leaders at the White House.
We are pleased with the way things have gone so far. We are determined to finish what we've set out to do.
Afterwards, there was more praise for the success of Operation Desert Storm.
We hope that the outcome is swift and with the minimum of damage and loss of life, and we will join in full support of the men and women of our armed forces who are displaying such courage and skill.
At the Pentagon, cautious optimism.
So far, so good.
Airstrikes have included 1,000 sorties and 100 Tomahawk cruise missiles. The Pentagon is satisfied that the primary targets in Iraq and Kuwait have been hit. The secretary cautioned that this is just the beginning and that there is more to come.
There have been casualties, and there are likely to be more casualties.
Casualties would swiftly mount if the more than 1 million ground forces in the desert join the battle. At a prayer service this morning, no doubt President and Mrs. Bush prayed that would never happen. The Pentagon is going to brief both houses of Congress this afternoon. Roy?
All righty, Carolyn, is there any word as yet when the ground forces are going to start moving in? Have you heard anything from the Pentagon on that?
Well, not really, but it's going to go this way. Most likely. There will be at least another 2 days of intense air bombardment, at which time Allied commanders will assess the situation. The lack of Iraqi resistance so far has been almost astonishing. At some point, ground forces will have to be brought in, though, either to accept the surrender of the ineffective Iraqi troops or to conduct a mop-up operation in Kuwait. You have to remember, Roy, that Saddam's communications with his officers in Kuwait have been severed. His air force is really non-existent, and that's probably because for the first time the world is seeing some very, very high-tech air force at work.
Carolyn, is there any word yet as to why there has been a lack of inaction, or a lack of action, rather, by Saddam Hussein on American troops?
Well, the general feeling seems to be that he was very surprised and caught off guard by the attack. You may have heard that it took Baghdad almost an entire hour last night to shut the lights down. They had been practicing that all week, and they had been doing it much more quickly. They had been doing it in 15-minute intervals throughout the city, but it took a whole hour to shut it down. The other theory is that he never has ever experienced the kind of high-tech weaponry that was used against him this time. Certainly during the 8-year-long Iran-Iraq war, Saddam never faced such a formidable force.
Carolyn, what's your opinion regarding the government's asking of us to not to be as optimistic that this thing is going to end so quickly? Why do you think that with the type of firepower that we've used, and it's apparent seems that we've put some major hurt on the Iraqis, why do you think that they are not confident that this thing will end quickly?
Well, we have been hitting military targets in Baghdad. That means the civilian population, hopefully, has been spared. In Kuwait, the situation is probably a little different, although I don't get the impression that they are exactly carpet bombing Kuwait. It could be that when American forces finally do have to go into Kuwait to do a mop-up operation, that they could meet significant resistance, and that could result in some very, very significant casualties.
Carolyn, what is the mood in Washington today, now that we have been into this thing for a while now?
I think most people are breathing a sigh of relief. I think that most people could hardly stand the anxiety another day. And while no one is ready to say this is done, this is over with, our worst fears have not come to pass, I do believe everyone thinks the worst is over, and that the rest is probably going to be not as bad as anyone expected, although I'm not so certain, and I don't believe anybody is, that is really is true either.
Do you expect the president to go back on the air today nationwide to give us a status report of the war in the Gulf?
The president said this morning that he is going to have very little to say. He said that he is not going to respond to every up and down. He said there are going to be a lot of downs. He said that he has complete confidence in his military commanders in the field and here in Washington at the Pentagon to respond to situations as they come up and to respond to press inquiries. The president clearly does not want to say too much because I think that he fears misinformation.
All righty. Carolyn, thank you so very much for that report. News Channel 5's Carolyn Gorman reporting live from Washington, and we will have more on America at War in just a moment. Stay with us.
We're still closing our doors on February 3rd. Bankruptcy Liquidators name brand athletic shoes start at $9.99 a pair. Special reduced prices on Nike, Reebok, LA Gear, and Converse. Low tops, none higher than $25. High tops, none higher than $35. We're still closing our doors on February 3rd. Bankruptcy Liquidators has reduced our men's dress, casual, and athletic shoe prices to only $9.99 a pair.
There goes another one of them Food Line trucks.
Wasting your time, you ask me, opening new stores around here?
Don't know. Mildred says Food Line's got real good meat and produce.
Already got supermarkets with meat and produce.
And she says they got a big selection of name brand products.
Don't Mildred know we got stores with name brand products?
Well, I reckon so, but she said Food Line's got extra low prices.
Oh?
Well, Mildred said it was going to rain today, too, and look how nice.
Food Lion. Everywhere we go, we bring extra low prices.
Here's a look at the facts as we know them today. America in war. U.S. military sources now say the American plane lost in the first day of the raids on Iraq was a Navy F-18. And sources do not say whether the plane was shot down or crashed from another cause. And they are not saying which aircraft carrier the base was a base for that lost plane. The pilot is officially listed as missing and presumed dead. His identification is being withheld pending notification of next of kin. Also, a British plane has reportedly been lost. We don't know how many pilots were on board that plane. And Egypt says arrangements have been made for the desertion of 50 Iraqi tank crews in Kuwait. Also, Tennessee Adjutant General Carl Wallace says there were no Tennessee casualties. Now, News Channel 5 is making some program changes so that we can continue to bring you the latest news on the war in the Persian Gulf. Now, for the time being, our midday report, which you are viewing right now, will air at 11 a.m. It will be followed by The Young and the Restless at 11:30. Talk of the Town will be seen at 12:30. We will interrupt network programming at any time if there are any important local developments related to Operation Desert Storm. Also, we will be giving out phone numbers throughout the day here on News Channel 5 for the Defense Department for family members who need to try to get information about their loved ones who are deployed to the Persian Gulf and are in Operation Desert Storm. Now let's check in with Bob Stokes and find out about today's forecast and see what the weather looks like.
Yeah, a lot of clouds around now, Roy, but I think enough clearing will come in and provide us with some sunshine now and again. The next 5 days, as a matter of fact, calls for dry weather right through the weekend and Monday. But you'll notice that temperatures will plunge on Sunday, a high of only 37, then high of 35 on Monday. Up until that time, readings in the 40s and low 50s for highs.
Alrighty. Thank you, Bob, and thank you for joining us. We will see you back here throughout the day with the latest information on America at War. Bye-bye.
This is a News Channel 5 Learning Matters Minute. It's hard to get ahead without a high school education, but where does that leave the 1 in 4 adults in Tennessee who never finished the 8th grade?
Out in the cold. They'll never make it in this world.
And you're looking at the lower skilled positions, lower pay, probably in the poverty area.
So many of our adults lack even an 8th grade education. Has life passed them by, or can they be helped?
I dropped out of high school myself, and I went back and got a GED, and it wasn't that difficult.
The state needs to provide some kind of training, educational training for them.
And there are people out there willing to help them. I'm teaching in developmental studies program at TSU, and the people I've been working with are great.
You always got a chance, you just don't give up.
This has been another Learning Matters Minute, brought to you as a public service of News Channel 5.
Clarette's gum, now in wintergreen.
It starts with itch and irritation, and then hemorrhoid flare-up. For soothing, cooling relief on contact, get Tux medicated pads. Tux pads, the one hospitals trust most.
When things get tough, remember, Shake and Bake makes it easy to treat your family to plump, juicy pork chops without frying. Why fry? Shake and Bake. If you've developed a fear of frying, remember, Shake and Bake makes it easy to make crisp, juicy chicken for your whole family without frying. Why fry? Shake and Bake.
You're watching WTVF Nashville.
is CBS.
We are back. I'm Connie Chung here with Charles Kuralt. The latest headlines from the Gulf. One U.S. casualty is reported, the pilot of a Navy F-18 jet shot down. Allied troops are on the border with Kuwait. Our Scott Pelley had been to the border. He saw the troops gathering there, did not know if they were going to cross over, but nonetheless reported that Allied troops are on the border with Kuwait. Saddam Hussein remains defiant. President Bush says he's pleased with the progress of the war. Allied troops are reported massing on the border between Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, perhaps signaling that the ground war is at hand. But in Baghdad, Saddam Hussein is not budging from his position. The latest demand that he leave Kuwait comes from Mikhail Gorbachev, who sent a note to Saddam through the Soviet ambassador. That defiance stretches all the way to London, where Iraq's ambassador promises a struggle, quote, to the last Iraqi child. The air war that has raged in the Iraqi skies began not with planes, but with a barrage of about 100 Tomahawk cruise missiles. The Pentagon says the Tomahawks came through their first taste of combat with flying colors. Once the missiles had done their work, Allied aircraft went into action, more than 1,000 sorties so far. U.S. officials say more planes are on the way, and one estimate says there could be 2,000, that's 2,000 raids by the end of the first day of combat. Returning pilots described what it was like.
You sit there and you watch this stuff come up, and at some point you become comfortable almost with what you're doing because you're in your cockpit, and then you realize that this isn't the time to become comfortable with what you're doing because you've got stuff being aimed at you. And it kind of jogs you back into reality, and you go, that is aimed for me. I need to be looking at it a little bit better. So it kind of brings you back into reality real quick.
President Bush this morning praised the Allied effort, and later he attended church with members of his cabinet and the Reverend Billy Graham. For the stock markets in this country, war in the Gulf has been a shot in the arm. The Dow Jones Industrials Average is up sharply, and oil prices are way down. Aren't you struck when you hear these pilots talking about how they felt as they were flying these missions? Many of them, I'm told, have had 7-8 years of experience preparing themselves for this very moment, and now it has come.
Yes, the General Dugan was talking a minute ago, Connie, about how many of these aircraft have been carrying out these missions have never been tried out in war before. We ought to note that most of these pilots have never been tried out in war before either. There's a big difference, as we all know, between 7 or 8 years of training and actually taking off with a full bomb load, flying across an enemy border, and heading for an enemy. And apparently, those pilots' work is having some effect. We know that. We have a report now that sources in Iran say that Iraqi TV has gone off the air with a deafening blow. That may mean, I suppose, that one of the hundreds of American fighters and bombers are in the air again tonight, for it is night in the theater of operations, bombed Iraqi TV off the air. In any case, we know that communications in that country have been fairly well disrupted.
I don't know, Charles, if you had seen yesterday's Wall Street Journal. It was describing Saddam Hussein. We saw him today, of course, on television, and he was rallying his troops and his supporters. But this particular piece said that he was either a man bent on martyrdom or a high-rolling gambler who had misread his cards. And it also said that when UN Secretary General Javier Pérez de Cuellar met with him, that Pérez de Cuellar said that he appeared totally detached from the crisis at hand, uninterested in anything his visitor had to say, and even unable to focus on issues he himself has previously addressed. Instead, he seemed preoccupied, this is most bizarre, with plying Mr. Pérez de Cuellar with tea and coffee, a strange departure for a man who, with earlier visitors, had little time for any pleasantries. And no one seems to be able to get in contact with him. His whereabouts are not known. He obviously was trying to avoid a specific U.S. attack. But no matter what tact anyone was taking, Saddam Hussein was not, didn't seem to be responding. Gorbachev now has tried to appeal to him, but we don't know the results of that.
It's hard to figure out, isn't it? All this time, I accepted at face value, Connie, the often repeated maxim that Saddam Hussein was a megalomaniac, perhaps, but not a madman. And it's so that events of the last couple of days do make you wonder where his mind is.
Exactly. I think when Dan Rather came back from his interview, he clearly got the impression that this was not a madman, and that although there were bits of evidence of rather bizarre behavior, that Dan didn't really get that impression at all.
My thoughts keep straying back to those pilots. We've lost one of them that we know of so far, a Navy man flying an F-18. Bernard Goldberg is sitting here. He has a little bit of experience of warfare. What do you think about the performance of those flyers so far, Bernie?
Well, we do have some late word from London, Charles, quoting defense officials saying that the previous bombing raids inflicted significant damage, those are their words, significant damage on Iraq, and that the sorties would continue. I think the headline of the day, at least so far, is Scott Pelley's report that American and other allied troops are massing on the border near Kuwait. Officials have reported that more air raids have been launched from Saudi bases. We assume air raids have been launched. They've taken off from Saudi bases, and they're heading for Iraq. Some of the pilots, Charles, that came back earlier, who flew the earlier raids on Iraq, have been back in Saudi Arabia for some time now, and they've spoken about the attack runs that they were on. These are some of the pictures of the planes returning to the bases in Saudi Arabia. The pilots came back, and this is what they had to say.
I can tell you that where we went today, nobody showed up to challenge us. If we can scare them so bad into not showing up, then we've probably done our job better than if we had to go up there and hurt somebody.
We went in there and did exactly what we wanted to do. We had air superiority the entire time. He came up very little. We went in with some very precision bombers. We went in some very heavily defended areas and dropped some excellent bombs.
When he blew up, I could see a piece of the airplane blowing up. Obviously, it was at night. I couldn't see if a parachute or anything like that. It was a huge fireball. I don't anticipate anybody getting out of that. Well, it's unfortunate that it had to go this far, that Saddam didn't realize that President Bush was serious about the whole thing. That's what's too bad. But
just remember that this is only first day of a war. It's not necessarily the conclusion of it. And even though he didn't come up voice today, we know he has some aircraft, he has some power, and we're still waiting for him to do that.
Charles, that last pilot was Colonel John McBroom. Let me just repeat what he said, because I think it's very important. Let's not forget that it's only the first day of the war, not necessarily the conclusion of it. And if those troops that apparently are massed on the border near Kuwait decide to move in, then this war really has only just begun.
Yes, I'll say, Connie and I were talking earlier about how the really tough job in this war is going to fall to those men with rifles who are going to have to go in on foot and retake the territory, the little country of Kuwait. Theirs is the tough job, and that's still ahead. There's been an awful lot of talk in this country about the damage that air power can do, and it looks like it has done a lot just in the last 18 hours. But somebody has to take the ground.
I think, like so many of us who thought that something would happen before we would actually begin bombing, something. We all hoped, we knew the expectation, but we were still surprised and jolted that it actually began, the war began. By the same token, don't you think that we're hoping that it's just going to be a bombing raid and that the troops will never become involved?
I just don't think that's in the cards. Yes.
I know that's not in the cards, but I mean, there's this feeling that maybe it could just be this part. Maybe we could just leave it at that. Not to happen. Well, there were many demonstrations all across the country last night in Washington, D.C. at Lafayette Square, in the United Nations, here in New York City, in Huntington, West Virginia, Austin, Texas, San Francisco, there was an angry and animated crowd of demonstrators last night. Today, the demonstrators are back. John Blackstone is with them at the Federal Building. John?
Good morning. Here, the Federal Building has been sealed off by demonstrators. Many of these demonstrators have been on the streets since yesterday, in fact, since minutes after the announcement that America was at war. Here at the Federal Building this morning, their attempt has been to close down the federal government in San Francisco. There's a large crowd of demonstrators who have pushed right up against the doors, sealed the building, closed. Federal employees were told if they were going to get to work this morning that they'd have to get in before 6 o'clock in the morning. There may be some people at work, certainly very few. Now, there's a large number of riot police around here as well, fully equipped. They have been making arrests, and they promise to make many more. This gathering has now been officially warned that this is an act of civil disobedience, and people will be arrested. We expect large-scale arrests to begin soon. It's also fair to say, however, that a lot of the demonstrators here did not come bent on violence. They came to make a peaceful demonstration. Certainly in talking to them, we've been told over and over that people came here, many people came here just hoping to make a peaceful point against war, and that it's a large number, it's only a small number of those, rather, who've caused problems with the police. Also fair to say that not all the demonstrations here have been against what's been going on in the Middle East, that there was at least one demonstration at a naval weapons plant in this area last night of people who wanted to show their support for the president and for the fighting men in the Gulf.
Thank you. John Blackstone in San Francisco at the Federal Building. We're seeing a new generation of student demonstrators, the crystallization of or a repeat of the 60s. They are returning again. The students who were not activists in the 70s and the 80s are now becoming political activists again because of this war. Meredith Vieira is at Columbia University. Let's go live there. Meredith?
Well, Connie, at this point, I can't say that you're seeing a repeat of what happened in the 60s. You can see behind me, there are about 350 students and faculty demonstrating at this point, rallying at this point, according to the police. That is truly a minority of students here at Columbia. There is an organized anti-war movement here, and they would argue that the number here is small because they haven't had enough time to organize the students. The war caught all of us, or most of us, by surprise. But they said last night they started with about 200 students, and within an hour had 2,000 who marched down to the UN. However, I've talked to a lot of students here this morning, and I find a very mixed feeling about what's going on here. A student just moments ago said to me, please make it clear to your audience that the majority of students here do not support an anti-war movement. A few days ago, there were probably several thousand students in this area here demonstrating, and now very few because the war has started. Most of the students here, he said, want to get behind the president at this point. Besides which, at this point, America and its allies seem to be doing very well. But if I can turn the camera, I just want to show you, across the way here in this square, there is a small group called Students Mobilized Against Saddam Hussein. It is quite a small group who are in support of the president. They say their numbers are much larger, but they're not reflected physically because people who support the president don't tend to come out in large number. They are also chanting. They have their own mic there. And they claim that they truly represent American students, that if you see an anti-war movement here, it's because Columbia tends to have a liberal tradition.
All right.
Connie?
Thank you. Meredith Vieira at Columbia University. I'm glad she pointed out the fact that I can make sweeping statements such as we're seeing a crystallization of a new student movement in the 90s, when in fact what she says is that there are very few, and a majority of the students are telling her that they are not anti-war. They are not against this particular war. Charles?
All right. CBS News coverage of the war in the Gulf will continue.
Heinz home-style gravy is just like homemade.
Ain't like my wife's.
But we use real beef and beef juices.
No, hers has these little lumps in it. Kids used to save them, play marbles in the cellar.
Heinz home-style gravy, so close to homemade.
A sink isn't the only place Woolite cleans safely and gently. Use the delicate cycle And a lot of your hand washing won't need your hands.
If you think there's a longer lasting shine than tough acrylic future, think again. For long-lasting acrylic protection, nothing outshines future.
If your doctor has recommended Metamucil and you like the results, but you don't like those glasses of thick liquid, change to FiberCon. Get the same fiber action in easy-to-swallow tablets. Get doctor-recommended FiberCon.
Someone should talk to you about how much time you spend on the phone, and who you talk to, and when and where. A Sprint representative can easily help you select a savings plan for your personal calling needs, and Sprint has better overall savings than AT&T. So there's a plan that's perfect for you, unless of course you're a teenager. I can't believe it. No one's invented the perfect plan for that.
Here are the latest headlines in the Persian Gulf War. One United States Navy pilot has been killed. President Bush and the U.S. military show no intention of letting up on Iraq. Saddam Hussein shows no sign of giving up. In New York, crude oil prices take their biggest one-day fall in history. So far, it appears the United States is enjoying a decided edge in this war. So far are words we should underline. Tactical superiority on the side of the United States, obviously. The Kuwaiti ambassador to the United Nations reports Iraqi soldiers are defecting rather than fighting.
A big number of the Iraqis are defecting. The Iraqi soldiers whom are in the residential area, are knocking the doors on the houses of the Kuwaitis, pleading for them to take their weapons, armament, and give them civilian clothes. This has been increased since last night. Some of them has been accepted, definitely, and a lot of them has been moved to certain places with the resistance, but it is increasing in number, the defection by the Iraqis to the Kuwaiti resistance.
For several weeks, CBS News has had a source inside Kuwait who's been able to send messages out to us. And what the Kuwaiti ambassador said just then is something we've actually been hearing for a long time now, that many of the Iraqi soldiers wanted no part of this occupation, and at least gave the Kuwaitis the impression that they would defect at the first opportunity. The opportunity has come for those who want to. For his part, President Bush remains committed to the ongoing war effort, of course, even as he traveled to church this morning. Financial markets have shot up worldwide. The Dow Jones Industrials, as you see, are even higher than they were a few minutes ago. They jumped immediately when trading began, after stocks rose in every other market in the world overnight. Crude oil prices, after rising very nearly to an all-time high in cash trading in New Orleans and Houston last night, fell so low so quickly on the Mercantile Exchange when it opened this morning that trading in oil futures was halted for an hour. All of this, of course, speculation that this war will be a quick and successful one. Phil Jones is down there on Capitol Hill. He can tell us something about what's going on in the Congress at this hour. Phil?
Well, Charles, at this point, Congress really has sort of a secondary role. In a way, they're spectators. They've already done this past weekend what they had to do, and that was pass the resolution telling the president that if he could certify that the diplomacy had failed, then it was all right to go ahead with force. You saw Congressman Michael, the House Republican leader, on in your interview a few minutes ago. Everything sounded very calm. If you have watched the members coming from the White House briefings, Democrats and Republicans have expressed their support for the men going on, and everything would appear to be very calm. But as those bombs are dropping in the Persian Gulf, there's a little bit of political strafing going on right here on the Hill. And it's all over the wording of a resolution that they want to get through Congress here within the next couple of days. Now, the Democrats have been talking about wording that would say that the Congress supports the men who are over there doing, the men and women who are over there doing the fighting. The Republicans say privately that what's happening is that a bunch of Democrats are trying to dive for political cover because they opposed the president initially. They voted this past weekend against giving him support to go ahead with force if necessary. And now that this thing is underway, they're looking for political cover. A Republican view, of course. But the Republicans say that they are not going to allow anything to be voted on unless the final wording of that resolution says that Congress supports both the men and the President of the United States in what he's doing. It appears that the Senate will probably take up that resolution sometime this afternoon. I would imagine before it's all over that the President will be included in the wording, and then it will be taken up by the House sometime tomorrow.
You know, Phil, when they voted the other day, many members of the Senate and the House said that they were going to vote for this resolution because that was the surest way to keep the peace. Boy, they didn't keep the peace very long. I wonder if any members of Congress are feeling that this war came on too soon, even those who voted for the resolution supporting the president.
Well, I think that you're going to find up here exactly what you find going on around the country. You know, it reminds me of the joke that has often been told about Congress when Congress gets criticized. Will Rogers was once asked, isn't it true that Congress is made up of a bunch of scoundrels and thieves? And Will Rogers responded, yes, but it's a pretty good cross-section of America. And I think that fits here now. I mean, as you have pointed out several times, you know, the country is not exactly sure how it feels on this right now. And there are many people who cast their votes last weekend who are not exactly sure whether it was right or not. Some of them, I think, are looking at it morally. Was it right or not? Others are trying to assess the political consequences of their vote. But at this point, there's really not much they can do. As House Speaker Tom Foley pointed out this morning, the role of Congress right now is to provide support, moral support, and also to provide the funds if the president comes and wants more money. Thus far, he has not.
Phil Jones on Capitol Hill. Thank you very much, Phil. Our coverage of the war will continue.
We are back. Let us go now to the Hartford area where we've gathered some residents to talk with us about the Gulf. With us, Ejanetta Miller, a fiber artist and textile painter, also works at a senior center. Seth Feigenbaum, a municipal attorney with New Britain, and Ashley Altschuler, a Trinity College freshman. Thank you for joining us this day. Ms. Miller, tell us, what do you think of what the president has done, the military action, the bombing, and the latest report that we've received that Allied troops are gathering near the border of Kuwait?
I'm very, very upset. I was sitting in my bedroom last night. I'm usually a very hyperactive person, but being very, very still and watching the scenario as it went down, it was almost like looking at a movie script. I am a firm believer in no war. I cannot tell you how sad I am about the 450,000 men and women that are there. I would hope, obviously it's happened, I would hope that they can get out of there as soon as possible. I think that we cannot continue to try and be the saviors of the world. We cannot continue to go into different countries and try and administer their future. I've lived through Vietnam, I've seen the devastation, and I would like it to stop.
All right. How old are you, Ms. Miller?
How old am I?
Yes.
I'm 45.
So you have, you do have experience with war before?
I have experience. Yes, I have, and I was hoping and thought that this would not happen again. And here it is.
Mr. Feigenbaum, your reaction to what has occurred thus far?
Connie, I don't feel that it's an issue between war and peace. I think it's an issue of getting a limited peace if we stood by and did nothing versus a sort of meaningful and enduring peace by taking the action the president did take today. Saddam Hussein's resume is replete with atrocities of terrorist attacks, ruthlessness, and wars. And I'm reminded of the old adage that pay me now or pay me later. By taking this action today, I think he's saying that we'll try to minimize casualties and not give Saddam Hussein an opportunity to acquire more armaments, and especially nuclear armaments. I didn't vote for President Bush, but I think he had clear and present reason to take the action that he did.
You know, we have watched public opinion polls, and they have showed us that people like yourself will support a war if it's short and there are minimum casualties. If it begins to drag on, which is entirely possible, public opinion polls tell us that the public becomes impatient, and that as casualties mount, the support begins to wane. Could you see that happening to you?
Well, from the preliminary reports that I've been hearing, it doesn't seem like it's going to be a long-term war. I am concerned the fact that the military personnel are beginning to think about a land invasion. I was hoping that the air assault would continue. Obviously, as more deaths and more casualties accrue, my ideas may change and my positions may change.
And you are definitely concerned about the American troops on the ground. If they proceed anytime soon, if we report to you that they have crossed the border, that would be a great concern to you.
Very much a great concern, because our superiority is in the air, and we've demonstrated that, I think, and I would not want to see an increase of American or Allied casualties.
Thank you. Ashley Altschiller, you're a freshman, I believe, at Trinity College.
Yes.
Are you concerned about going to war yourself?
Well, that's a question that I thought about recently. I never thought that this day would come, but I guess if the war does drag on and if it doesn't occur really rapidly as President Bush had hoped it would, then that would threaten my future. But at the moment, I'm trying not to think about it. I'm trying to concentrate on my school and at the same time follow up what's been going on in the Gulf. And it's very scary what's been happening, but I think I need to keep my goals and keep my senses about me and worry about maybe a possible draft when the time comes.
Do your friends share your thoughts and concerns? I mean, is it prevalent as you go to college, as you go into your classes? Do you find that that feeling is ominous?
Yeah, a lot of people everyone has their own opinion, of course, and in college there's a lot of people who like to show their opinions in different ways. But I think that most people in my class, a lot of my friends, we support the war due to the fact that Saddam has been given his 5.5 months and he denied the UN and he's been arrogant, and I think it's time that that United States and other allied forces take some action. And there's a lot of people who feel otherwise and feel that peace should be initiated in the Gulf, and that's everyone's goal. If there could be a peaceful solution, I think a lot of us would be pretty happy with that. But so far, it seems that Saddam is, as he said, he's going to fight till like the last end, until the last child. And it's an awful thing to say. I'm hoping that they stay with the air war so that they can minimize casualties on both sides. Because I think if the ground war comes into effect, it's going to get pretty bloody on the land.
Very quickly, Ms. Miller, just one quick question. You work in an elderly center, and I just wanted you to give me one word on how they are reacting to what's going on.
They're very sad.
Very sad. Thank you.
Very sad.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. I appreciate that. Our golf coverage will continue right after this break.
This is CBS.
Way back in 1988, when I was young, the American Cancer Society taught me that a low-fat, high-fiber diet could reduce the risk of cancer. I gave up some of my vices, didn't drink too much, ate my vegetables, especially those rich in vitamins A and C, and every bite was delicious. Today, I'm 82 and still having a blast.
Ready for warp speed, Commander.
Execute.
The American Cancer Society knows eating right can reduce the risk of cancer.
Nobody knows a neighborhood like a kid on a bike. Kids in their bikes explore every street, every shortcut, curb, and pothole. But explorers often encounter the unknown and the unexpected, and they need to be prepared. Each year, 4 times as many children are killed on bikes as kidnapped by strangers. Head injuries from a bike fall could disable your child for life. The Surgeon General says helmets could prevent most serious head injuries. So give your kids bike helmets and make sure they wear them. Bike helmets are smart.
Watching CBS News continuing coverage of Showdown in the Gulf. From CBS News headquarters in New York, here are Connie Chung and Charles Kuralt.
Here are the latest headlines. Allied troops are said to be massed on the Kuwaiti border now. Iraqi targets being hard hit again by Allied airstrikes. It's nighttime over there. One report says Iraqi television has gone off the air and went off the air, according to this report, with a bang. But Saddam Hussein says Iraq will fight on. With news of Allied troops massing on the Kuwaiti border, that country's ambassador to the United Nations said this morning, Iraqi occupation troops, some of them anyway, are ready to quit.
A big number of the Iraqis are defecting. The Iraqi soldiers whom are in the residential area, are knocking the doors on the houses of the Kuwaitis, pleading for them to take their weapons, armament, and give them civilian clothes.
More than 1,000 flights have hit Iraq, probably